and have a look at some ancient history, because I stumbled across this story about archaeologists hunting for Cleopatra's tomb ended up finding what they called a geometric miracle tunnel in the city of Taposiris, I think it's called, Magna, on the Egyptian coast. And the reason why I like this, I'll get to this in a minute when I sum it all up, obviously, but I'm always fascinated by this stuff, this idea that ancient civilizations actually did do some really interesting feats of engineering, and probably the pyramids are an excellent example of that. And obviously, this is another example where it seemed like its use was to like funnel water, underneath whatever it is that they were doing there. And it kind of has, sort of a connection with like some like aqueduct technology, maybe in ancient Rome. The Greeks had something as well, and that it's quite remarkable when you think about it in terms of human ingenuity or whatever, that even at that stage we had the ability to work some of this stuff out. So that despite the fact that, the Egyptians had all these gods and everything, and that they were looking at all these things and had a kind of mindset that was radically different, I guess, to what modern civilization is, there still seemed to be a mathematical underpinning to all of these structures that they built and all of that, even if they went about it a different way, obviously with different types of tools or whatever, kind of underlying that the universal language of mathematics and science still applies in that sense, that it still worked that way. So that's why I like it. This story kind of jumped out at me as being really interesting and fascinating. Another reminder of, how these things are.
Oh, absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head. Since the universe has come into existence, the laws of math and physics have remained unchanged. So, the math they were using is the math we use today. And the laws of physics required to create tunnels or structures like that have not changed in not just 5,000 years, but probably, 13 billion years. So it's quite amazing, really, when we see these things. But we often forget, I think, how advanced these ancient civilizations or classical civilizations could have been, because math is math. And so while they might not have invented, rockets or jet engines or computer chips, the math for architecture is completely possible. Remember, in ancient Greek times, they basically came up with the Antikythera mechanism, which is effectively an analog computer, from what we can tell. And what you might think is that while doing these mathematical calculations to build these tunnels or structures might have been laborious for one person, a team of skilled mathematicians, maybe 100, maybe 200, sitting down, could probably calculate these things very effectively and very accurately. And I think the analogy for that also is you go back 60 years and think about what was happening at NASA. A whole group of very talented mathematicians, engineers and physicists were working with slide rules. And they were able to send someone to the moon, principally because they had that extra technology. So, yeah, I don't think it's aliens. I think it's, good old human know-how.
Yeah, and that brings me to my second point about the aliens, only because I love social media and how these things pop up that, the graphic on a post that shows a UFO over the top of a pyramid, so it must have been aliens helped them out, because, there's no possible way that humans could have come up with this stuff way back then. And I just find a lot of that amusing. I mean, it's kind of good for... I don't know, a film or something, to have a bit of fun. But sometimes the simplest explanation is often the right one. And although it's not as sexy to think that, we just knew how to do it back then, and then somehow through history we forgot it, but then we relearnt it again using other tools and another interpretation of the language of it, so we understand it more, kind of thing. But yeah, it's not good for circulating social media posts, I guess.
Well, I mean, and there's a certain irony in that, isn't there? You can send a video from one side of the planet across the internet, so send images to someone sitting on the other side of the planet who magically sees them through a screen. We don't really understand how any of it works, yet we don't think that's a miracle. And yet, building a stone building, 5,000 years ago, oh, that's a miracle.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just like we're doing now. This is all a miracle how we're doing this right now.
Exactly. It has to be alien technology.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, don't even get me started on maybe the whole Roswell thing. Maybe that's how all the computer chips started, because they, reverse engineered anything that they discovered there. I'm sure that's circulating.
Those strange metals that don't occur on this planet or anywhere else in the universe, because they're not on the periodic table.
Absolutely.